Namaskar. My heartfelt gratitude to all of you for being here in these wonderful surroundings of the ashram. Today we will be discussing something about the prayers and meditations, this divine scripture, a collection of the prayers and meditations of the Mother. Now, this collection emerged out of the Mother's daily diary notes, and she wrote down these prayers. These are written meditations of the Mother. She wrote down these prayers and meditations while doing her own yoga, while she was doing her own following her own intense yogic discipline. So, this divine book, rightfully to be called as a scripture, it has her own path of yoga. The path of yoga, the sadhana, cannot proceed without experiences and realizations, as Sri Aurobindo says. The prayers and meditations, this book, this divine book, it just not outlines, it is a detailed description of the Mother's own path, own yogic path, the ups and downs that she underwent. And these prayers and meditations are so universal, they hold true even today. And these are living words of the Mother, written by her. These are her meditations. And by doing this, she has left behind a concrete link, a material link she has created for all her children, that is us. These, one can say, these are the supreme sutras of the integral yoga, coming directly from our own Mother. The Mother has poured out her own consciousness into these words. So when we read them, when we contemplate on them, when we reflect on these prayers and meditations, they have the power to bring us into direct contact with her own consciousness. Then the words are no longer words, they become a living experience for all of us. These are her own conversations and dialogues with the divine, the Supreme Lord. She refers to him as the Sovereign Master, my sweet Master. So, this is one scripture which contains all the aspects of integral yoga. Sri Aurobindo penned down Savitri much later, and in these prayers and meditations, the Mother has herself said that it is she who is doing the sadhana in all of us. It is being carried out by her. In her, through these prayers and meditations, we, human beings, find utterance of all our pains and sufferings, and all the paths that can be laid bare by the divine are all here contained in this divine scripture. There are three very big things which this collection actually does. It breaks down all rigid norms and beliefs that meditations, prayers, contemplations on the divine have to be carried out in a particular way. We have to sit in a posture, we have to go to the ashram, we have to go to the temple, we have to do chantings. Mother breaks down all of this. These prayers were actually written by the Mother early morning when she would just wake up and is in the process of making some coffee for herself. So meditations, contemplations, prayers, they don't require any rigid norms. They can be carried out anywhere, provided, yes, we are ready to have a conversation with the divine. It can happen anywhere. It can happen just anywhere. Talk about bus stand, talk about kitchen, talk about study rooms, whatever. It can happen anywhere. So we don't need external props or we don't need external setups to communicate with the divine. The second thing which the Mother brings out very strikingly over here is that one can get into contact with the divine by a certain attitude. Attitude, I don't mean the attitude which we know as, bahut attitude hai, the attitude which is full of candid, frank, humble, courageous, and it is a very sincere effort to tell the divine everything. This is the attitude. As if the divine is here and now and sitting in front of me, holding me, and I am bearing out everything, big, small, tiny, whatever it is. I am ready to tell the divine everything. The third thing, very important thing which the prayers and meditations tell us, this book contains, is how to consecrate oneself. We all know those good things, goody things, that we have to tell the truth, we have to be honest, we should not lie, we should not cheat. We know all these things, but they are all in principle, they are all in theory, in the mind. What the mother talks about is consecration in detail. And what is this consecration in detail? What is this detailing that the mother is talking of? Very simple. Tell the divine everything. That's the detailing. I'm going to have a meal. Mother, I'm going to have a meal. Come sit with me and have this meal. Mother, I'm going for a walk. Mother, I'm leaving for my office. Mother, I'm starting to drive. Be with me. That's all that is required. And this is detailing. This is the perfect consecration that one can aim for, one needs to get into. So, and the mother is doing that herself over here. Anything she is facing a problem, any small thing, big thing, turmoils, turbulences, all is here. All answers she gets are here. All ways she's praying for the entire creation. And how she is praying for the entire creation is all here. Today, yes, the topic is on prayers and meditations, but today we will be specifically looking at reflections on the prayers and meditations of the mother by Nolini. Full name, Nolini Kanto Gupta. And he was the most senior of Sri Aurobindo's disciples. When Sri Aurobindo came to Pondicherry in 1910, 4 people accompanied him, and Nolini was one of them. He was taught Greek, Latin, French, Italian by Sri Aurobindo himself, and was among the first disciples of Sri Aurobindo, or you can say the first ashramite, or the first persons. There were 2 people who recognized the mother as the mother, Amrita and Nolini. And throughout, when Sri Aurobindo and the mother, they left their physical forms, Nolini was one. He was the eldest sibling for us, and he guided us, all of us, by telling, love the mother. That is the easiest way. So, what are his reflections on the prayers and meditations? They are very beautiful. And when Nolini says something about the mother or Sri Aurobindo or about anything written by them, what is revealed to us is very profound. And it is because he, I think, a true child of the mother, talking about his mother, everything that the mother has written about. And in the words of Nolini, the prayers and meditations of the mother, it is a life divine in song. He is bringing this beautiful aspect of lyricism of this book. These are prayers. There are 313 prayers written by the mother. How can each prayer be a lyric? So this is what he is trying to bring out in these reflections, that it is life divine set to music, made sweet and lovely, near and dear to us, a thing of beauty and a joy forever. He himself is getting very poetic when he's talking like this. But yes, for some of us, some people, the ideal or the goal may appear very far, may appear very aloof, cold, forbidding. The ascent may seem very arduous, the climb very difficult. And many would say that this yoga is not meant for mere mortals like us. It is only meant for the high-souled ascetics. But here, in the prayers and meditations, it is not the call of the mother for a hazardous climb. It is a warm invitation by her for a happy trek towards our own hearth and home, the mother herself. The voice of the divine is the loving mother's voice. And Nolini recognized it. He was one of the first persons to recognize this. These prayers are a music of the lyre, he says. Lyre, the instrument. You must have seen that instrument in very ancient, in the historical books, you have this curved kind of an instrument with strings. And it used to be one instrument which the mystics carried, and they sang devotional songs, and pilgrims carried with them. So he says these prayers are a music of the lyre. Why a lyre? Because there is a lyrical beauty. The word lyrics actually comes from the word lyre. So there is a lyrical beauty and poignancy in these utterances that the mother has uttered over here. What is true lyricism? True lyricism is a direct and spontaneous outflowing of the soul's intimate expression. And when mother writes down these prayers in her own words, these are her own conversations, these are her own intimate expressions. Somewhere the prayer started, she started writing them in 1912 and they continued till 1937. So according to Nolini, what is this wonder lyre that he's talking of? What is this wonderful lyricism that he's talking of about these prayers? They look like, for some, it may just look like prayers, but what he has found is so profound. There are 3 strains, he says. There are 3 strings of this wonderful lyre. The first string is the philosophical value or the philosophical strain that emerges from these prayers and meditations. The second is the yogic string. And the third is a beautiful strain of poetry. So philosophy, yoga, and poetry. And what a wonderful blend. It is very interesting how he illustrates all these strains, and fascinating indeed when one realizes that the fusion of these strains, all these 3 strings, the philosophical, the yogic, and the poetic value of what the mother has written herself in her own intimate way to the divine, what it creates, what do these 3 strains actually end up creating, is the mantric quality of these prayers and meditations. A little bit of contemplation and going truly into these prayers and meditations, one experiences a wideness. And they are prayers, they are paragraphs, they are lines. Nevertheless, each prayer has got a mantric quality. The philosophical strain, why philosophical strain? Philosophy is basically about things that are presented or explained to the intellect so that the mind can understand them and can seize upon them and see the truth in them. And later on, after the mind has grasped these principles or these theories or these facts, one may say, to elaborate on them in terms of reason and logical comprehension. That's philosophy. That is what philosophy is all about. So although the subject matter in the final analysis is beyond reason and logic, yet the philosophical angle of all these prayers, it is very profound, and it is there in many of the prayers. Nolini has quoted 2 or 3 examples, but later on, when I read through the prayers and meditations, I find it is full of them. Full of the philosophical angle, full of yogic angle, and full of poetry. So, what is this yogic strain? The yogic strain, the philosophical strain, actually leads or merges with the yogic strain. It cannot be separated. It has to move towards that. So, yoga is the path, and yoga is basically applied philosophy. So, we are given all disciplines, all processes, all procedures for the path, for the goal, how to pray, how to communicate with the divine. The mother is showing us how to aspire, how to bounce back after a fall, how to rise. And it is not only given for only people who have embarked on this path, it is given for beginners, people who are looking for self-mastery, people who want to experiment with the divine in the adventurous way, people who are already on the path, and sadhaks who are highly evolved on this path. It holds the yoga, the path. The path is laid bare over here for all of us. And let us look at some of the examples just to figure out what is this philosophical angle and what is the yogic angle. First, the philosophical angle. I'll just read out excerpts from the prayer. This prayer on May 12, 1914, the mother writes, "More and more it seems to me that we are in one of those periods of activity in which the fruit of past efforts becomes apparent. A period in which we act according to thy law in the measure in which it is the sovereign controller of our being, without having even the leisure to become conscious of the law." So there are periods of activities where we may not be even remembering the divine. We may remember the divine, we may offer it, but there are periods when we are not even ready. But later on we realize why it happened. What was the purpose it was serving for us? Then there's another prayer where the philosophical angle is very profound. What would be, August 29, 1914, what would be the use of man if he were not created to throw a bridge between that which is eternally, but is unmanifested, and that which is manifested, between all the transcendences and splendors of the divine life and all the dark and sorrowful ignorance of the material world? Man is the link between what must be and what is. And we call this what I call myself or you call yourself is an aggregate. And this aggregate is just an intermediary meant for the divine work. We are just meant to be the instruments. And there is the highest truth, the supreme reality, and which is above all. And there is this inconscient, and man is in between. So man is in between the abyss, somewhere in between the abyss. And the purpose of this is what? To carry out the divine work so that the divine will can manifest and matter can be transformed and become divine. And it is all leading towards that beautiful divine life in a divine body. This is what is meant here. Then, okay. Let us look at the yogic strain. When Nolini is talking of the yoga, the path, what we need to do. What are the descriptions given over here? Just a few examples. When we have discerned successively what is real from what is unreal, in all states of being and all the worlds of life, when we have arrived at the perfect and integral certitude of the soul reality, we must turn our gaze from the heights of this supreme consciousness towards the individual aggregate, which serves as the immediate instrument for thy manifestation upon earth. So even after having realized the supreme reality, yet we have to discern that reality, what it appears to us, it may be transient, it may not be the actual reality. What is the actual reality? That we are instruments of the divine. The work is being carried out by the divine in us. All we have to do is allow it. In spite of having that supreme state of union, the work cannot be neglected. And we are here for that work. And when we do that work, and when we allow the divine will to manifest through us, and allow the mother to work in us, the union is anyway a certitude. The union will anyway come. So, then there is another prayer. November 25, 1913. A considerable labor is needed to silence all these useless noises. It's real yoga to silence, bring in that silence. A considerable labor is needed to silence all these useless noises, to stop this wearisome train of images and to purify one's mind of these thousand little nothings, so obstructing and worthless. And it is so much time uselessly lost. It is a terrible wastage. So here we have to be very, very conscious. The thoughts, the obstructions, the obstacles, these multitude of images will always flash before us. Then how to take care of this? The easiest way again, call the mother. And she will do the work. It's that simple. But nevertheless, Sri Aurobindo says the path of yoga is not a straight path. There are ups and downs. But if we look at a wave motion, the ups and downs also, it goes like this, So there are ups and there are downs. But what is the path? The path is in a forward direction. All our ups and downs are leading us forward. All our ups and downs are the path themselves, and they are leading to the divine. And when we open, these ups and downs, they start becoming lesser. The downs, at least, they start becoming lesser and lesser. And the path, you can say, it acts like a catalyst. The moment we have this opening, we open to the mother, it acts like a catalyst, and it goes zoom to her. So, now indeed, as Nolini brings it out very beautifully, indeed philosophy and yoga, they go hand in hand, very evident from these prayers. And what is first mentally perceived and recognized and accepted by the reason is made active and dynamic in life through yoga. So the philosophical character embodies the abstract and the principles and the ideals, and the vital energy of the yoga, it is the executionary power. And it is meant for that. So philosophy brings in the light of the consciousness, and yoga brings in the energy of consciousness. And clubbed together, we can have something very wonderful. There are prayers where it is very difficult to make out where the philosophy begins and where the yoga is beginning. And so, Nolini, he coined a term, Yogic Philosophy. And a beautiful example he has quoted is from the prayers and meditations. We must, at each moment, shake off the past like falling dust, so that it may not soil the virgin path, which also at each moment opens before us. And the mother and Sri Aurobindo, they themselves have said that they have talked about the new creation. And while they talked of the new creation, they said, do not look at the past. Look at the future towards the new creation. It is there, waiting to happen. Open to it. Give your consent. And now, after the philosophic and the yogic strains, the third strain, the most charming, the most mystical and surprisingly most personal. So how can it be mystical and personal at the same time? It is the poetic strain. I will just read out first and let us all relish these lines. And usually the poetic strain emerges towards the end of each of the prayers. Either it is in the beginning or towards the end. And thy peace in me, and in that peace I see thee alone, present in everything with the calm of eternity. Already there is heard from behind the veil, the wordless symphony of gladness that reveals thy sublime presence. Let me be thy herald among men, so that all who are ready may taste the beatitude that thou grantest me in thy infinite mercy, and let thy peace reign upon earth. Hearken, O earth, to the sublime voice that rises. Hearken and take new courage. So poetic, and yet so personal. Simplicity, simplicity. How sweet is the purity of thy presence. Let thy glory be proclaimed and sanctify life. Let it transform men's hearts and thy peace reign on earth. So these prayers are very universal. And the poetic touch, the lyricism, that the charm that these words are, she often refers to the divine as, there is so much of a, you can say, it's almost like a serenade, my divine master, my sweet master, sublime master, divine Lord. So there is so much of a bhav, that expression, that personal expression. But is it for only her? She is giving out to everybody. It is there for us to feel, to touch. And usually, just like we have this very powerful syllable, Om, and we write A, U, and M, or you can say Om, like that it goes. And when they blend together, it forms Om. So, the philosophical, yogic, and the poetic strains, when they merge, it creates syllables, it creates vocables, it creates that lyric. These prayers are full of that lyric. It creates those lyrics which are finding first the expression in the mother, and while they are finding expression in the mother, they actually stand for an utterance of the entire mankind, as if the entire mankind is chanting, calling out to the divine through her. A poet's language is in truth the poet himself. That's what Nolini says. The syllables created by any poet is very characteristic, very particular to the poet. For example, if you take Shakespeare, when he would write, all his creations, all his compositions, or all his, you can say, literature, poetry, it carries a living blood vibration. He's talked of relationships, different types of relationships. So they are pulsating with the real heartbeat in real life, real lifetime. If you look at Dante's Divine Comedy and Dante's language, there is an expression of tapas, the ascetic energy. And when we look at the prayers and meditations of the mother, the fundamental expression seems to be a package of ethereal, gracious light directly coming from her. So the mother is, when she is conversing with the divine, she is at once individual and personal, because when she is writing the prayers, she is writing them personally. She is addressing the divine personally. They are her problems in life, she is seeking answers for that. At once, they are collective and also universal. One realizes that when one reads the prayers and meditations, they are actually for the entire mankind. They are so universal. Whatever she has said, she has actually worded it for all of us. And then, all at once, the transcendental aspect of the mother also comes. There are many prayers where the mother, in the human poise, is addressing herself, her transcendental form in the prayers. So, there is another angle. Besides the individual, collective, and the transcendental, there is another beautiful, and that is also very poetic. To my mind, it seems so poetic and so lyrical. It is her personal relationship with the divine. Nothing can beat that. It is her own exclusively individual, exclusively personal relationship. Her own yoga, which she is carrying out with the divine herself. We are very tiny to even understand what the mother and Sri Aurobindo, the kind of yoga they did amongst themselves. Of course, we have their literature. They have told so many things. But what they have not, there is a lot that they did not reveal for their own reasons, own divine reasons. So we are too small. But if we can just get into this strain of lyric, this beautiful expression with which the mother is calling out to the divine, that itself is yoga in itself. That itself is the yoga of the mother. So we see that the philosophical, the yogic, and the poetic strains all merge together in almost all the prayers. They are there. And what makes these prayers have a mantric quality is all these three strains fused together. In 1950, when Sri Aurobindo left his physical form, the ashramites over there, they were all very devastated. And then, while Sri Aurobindo was there in the human form,